Good evening, listeners. Welcome to episode 59, just 2 weeks after episode 58. What is going on? I know, 2020 really has gone mental now with the 2P's going back to 2 weeks. Mad. Good evening, Ben.
Evening, buddy.
We have got a very, very special treat for everyone tonight. I will do most of the talking. No. We've got Miles from Lil Legend Paint Studios has joined us for the whole episode. So we will be on the hobby desk talking to him about what his latest project is, as well as me messing around with 3D printing and Ben sculpting anything that moves, or anything that stops moving, I should say, into the Galaxy of War. Talking a little bit in there about the Nurgle Mechanicum mashup thing, into the mortal realms, where we'll be discussing the rather lovely Sigvald the Magnificent that has come along. Community section totally given over to Lil Legend, a fantastic Patreon that they've got running, and a Christmas calendar of awesomeness, and then finally into the wilds, where, well, you'll have to listen to find out. That's it. We ready? Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Guys, you know what to do. Grab some refreshments and we will see you on the hobby desk.
Hi guys, and welcome to episode 59's Hobby Desk, and we are joined by Miles, the Little Legend from Instagram, Twitter, Frame, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today, Miles.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. Only recently discovered your podcast. Absolute goddamn love it. So just delighted that you said yes when I asked whether I can invite myself on the show and chat to you and your fine audience.
Yeah, we were chuffed that you asked, really. I mean, we've both been following your work for a long time. We're particularly fans of the heresy, kind of the aesthetic that goes with it. And I personally, from my opinion, I think you've got it absolutely nailed. If I was to start a heresy army, I'd probably be looking at your stuff first to have an idea.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah,
I'll lead in with that like accolade, because I think when I do sort of look for inspiration, when it comes to heresy, the style that you've got is exactly the one I'd be looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's very kind of realistic military modeler-esque. The aesthetic, very desaturated, very, I guess, as photorealistic as possible.
Yeah.
Heresy really benefits from that, doesn't it?
God, yeah. It's a very different visual language to, say, 40k, which is a bit more saturated, a bit more eye-popping in nature, and AOS, which is extremely eye-popping and extremely visually pleasing. Yeah, it's kind of like the other end of the spectrum to that.
Mm. But one of the things I quite like that you do is introduce other colours that I wouldn't have thought of. So today, for example, I stumbled across your magnificent Space Wolf army and then nearly chucked all mine in the bin and stripped them again. And it looked like, and correct me if I'm completely wrong, but it looked like you'd introduced something like celia green shade into the armour or something like that.
Yeah.
A little hint of green in the armour.
Exactly. So before this recording, we had a little bit of a catch-up to make sure I wasn't like a complete mental case. And you can have me on the... Every other word coming out of my mouth wasn't an expletive or something racist. And we got chatting about Space Wolves and how to make grey interesting.
Yes.
And we mentioned, Fenris is just an incredibly interesting place in the set. Well, was an interesting place in the setting. And there was different bits, different cultures on Fenris. So it's not only kind of like Vikings hunting each other on the ice. You'd have shipping communities. You'd have those who live in the mountains, in the hills. And we got chatting about tribes that would live primarily on the sea, and how it'd be interesting to maybe introduce some of that sea green into the undertone of the grey. And if you look at that image again, that's what I talked about with the client. That was a completely commissioned army, sent off, thankfully very happy. we talked about developing that theme a little bit more. So the shoulder pads have custom Kraken emblems on them.
Love them. Yeah.
Yeah, and like some of them have tridents on them. They come very specifically from an area of Fenris, and they've carried that tradition on. And it's a nice way of embellishing your forces, a nice way of making it your own without completely overriding existing visuals for an army.
Yeah, and when we spoke, and actually reading through your website, you talk a lot about trying to develop a visual language with the client. Some, the bits of them coming into the army, their kind of their likes and dislikes, and how a theme should look. And I think that army really came across after our conversation. They absolutely look like there's just a bit of a sea in them.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps. I live in Swansea as well, so I'm right next to the coast. So lots of inspiration there. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, same coast as I'm next to, actually, just round the corner.
Oh, we sail to meet each other. Yeah.
I don't do sailing. If I'm sailing, I'm hanging over the edge of a boat vomiting.
I used to visit Bristol quite often as well before 2020. Yeah, I used to love going to Bristol. Oh well, stay lovely in the times before. Sorry?
I love going to Bristol.
Yeah.
Get to hang out with my mate.
Yeah.
I used to have a girlfriend in Swansea, and I used to drive over there all the time. It was a long way.
Was it a nice drive at the very least?
It usually ended well. But it was fine. It was fine. I had an old Vauxhall Vectra that I used to cruise over in.
Hang on, was this when you were living in Cornwall?
No,
when you moved to Bristol.
Drive to Swansea.
Yeah, that's a hell of a drive. May as well catch a plane.
Blimey. I mean, I know I sort of was fairly desperate at times, but that would be very extreme, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. There we go. That's my contribution to the hobby chat so far.
Swansea anecdote.
Yeah, keeping it up, keeping it real there with that. I did go to the Games Workshop in Swansea a few times, usually in preparation for Games Day. I remember driving a Luton van, which is about as aerodynamic as a breeze block, up from from Truro to Exeter to collect one bit of board, and then up and across to Swansea to pick up another part of the board, and then up to Games Day. That was a long drive.
Those were the good old days.
Yeah.
That was before the phrase carbon footprint really came into common usage.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What was brilliant is no matter how many times you went over the brief between the shops, when you brought the boards together, they never looked the same. No. Never did. So, other than the Space Wolves that you've been painting for your client, what have you been working on at the moment, Miles?
So personally, when lockdown hit, like my gaming group, we're all a bit bored, all a bit depressed. We were all watching one of the Warhammer previews, and Saul Tarvitz popped up, and that got the old cogs working. We got chatting in the group, like, "Oh, wasn't Book 1 Betrayal really good?" Yeah, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to play that. Okay, let's do it. Let's open the bar. Let's do Istvan 3 instead. So for the past several months, we've been doing a thing called hashtag Return to Istvan, where we've been collecting one of the original legions, and we had a few other people join in. So anybody out there, if you want to join in, all you have to do is present your work on any kind of social media platform with a hashtag Return to Istvan. Delighted to say we've had 2 completed entries already. The deadline is December the 1st, and I am barreling towards it. Yeah. Was it the 28th as we record?
Yeah. So by the time this is out, that should be that deadline will have gone.
I should just squeak underneath it. So that's what I've been doing recently for myself.
Is that a full force? Sorry, Miles. Is that like by the first?
It's a full. Yeah, it's a full 1,500 point Centurion force. So Centurion is kind of like an add-on to the basic Horus Heresy game, where it's mainly infantry. Yeah. So we've all seen the artwork for the Horus Heresy. It's mainly big hordes of Space Marines clashing against one another. And the Centurion rule set, developed by guys in Australia, weirdly enough. And you can find the rules on oz.30k.com. Type in Mournival Centurion rules. It's a free PDF. Anybody can download it for free. But it's a way to encourage you to take more infantry-styled armies.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done. 1,500 points, Centurion, all infantry. I've drawn the lucky straw, and I've drawn Sons of Horus Traitor. And I knew I would take a long time to paint this stuff. So I chose very tactically to go for a small model count army, but a very high quality per miniature. So it's all Justaerin, all Horus's elite bodyguard, led by Abaddon. And I've just finished off today a rather nerve-wracking resin pour on a dreadnought that I've been developing. I'm very happy to say that the resin has set. It didn't look like it would for a while, but it's fully set now, and it's ready. I need to take photos of it tomorrow and post it up. So that's what's been occupying me personally, as well as commission work along the side. But that's what I've been developing.
It's really nice to hear that your personal hobby is still, that sounds quite an exciting thing to be cracking on with, really clear direction. And I suppose that can be a risk when your hobby becomes your job.
Yeah, very much so. And I found early on, you need to separate your personal hobby and your personal life from your profession. And I work from home as well. So I had to get out of the habit of getting out of bed in my pajamas and going straight to work. Yeah. And it's the same mentality when it comes to your hobby.
I got on the end of a disciplinary for that one.
Yeah, with Zoom, you can't hide now, can you, with the cameras?
No.
And it's the same mentality you have to bring to your own work. That I'm a hobbyist. I really enjoy painting and playing with this game. This is my hobby. But when you do this professionally full time, you're painting all the time. If you're doing this constantly, it can get a little bit boring, a little bit annihilating. And I find having those kind of side projects, things I could develop for myself, they feed into my professional work.
Yeah.
So I can be a little bit more experimental with my own stuff, because I'm not going to, if I ruin it, who cares? It's just for me.
Yeah.
So I'd never do a resin pour experimenting on a client's work. No. I'd always test that stuff first. So I find that the personal stuff I enjoy developing feeds into the professional. I'm able to offer a whole new range of different skills and different effects and types, and we can talk through those things. And I'm just more stronger as an artist overall.
Yeah. I always found working for Games Workshop that I just ended up not painting for myself, because I painted so much models for the store that I just wouldn't. If I think about all the models I painted for GW Plymouth, and whether they would have been mine or would have found the energy to do mine at the same time, it's a bit depressing in some ways.
And it's the style of painting as well, I think. So when you're churning out infantry models by the dozen for Games Workshop, it's a very mechanical process. You might use techniques that will give you the best bang for your buck as quick as possible. And that's not necessarily a bad state of mind to be in. So I want to create more of a horde army next year, something like Krieg. But I want to have each miniature fall under 20 minutes from start to finish, complete.
Yeah.
But it's not a case of cutting corners, just dry brushing everything into annihilation. I need to set up certain portions, certain techniques to give me a good result in that time frame.
Yeah.
So, painting for myself, it allows me to experiment with this. And like Arnold Schwarzenegger said, we all get the same day. It just depends what you do with it.
I love a bit of Arnie. He's turned into a pretty inspirational dude over the years, hasn't he?
You know what? I think he's been reading some Marcus Aurelius, because he's come up with some corkers recently.
Yeah, he's great. His book on lifting is still pretty much. If I recommend one book to anyone for weightlifting, that would be the one.
Oh, okay. I haven't. I've read a biography of his that wasn't too. It wasn't. I guess it wasn't authorized by him because it didn't paint him in the best of lights. But a tremendously interesting human being.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you have to be to go through the things he's done, from being Hollywood to being.
Yeah,
Governor of California is
Governor
quite
of
a step in
California.
there.
Yeah, guy's got stories, if nothing else.
So, Dan, what have you been working on your desk?
Everything very small. I've been
Still
doing.
small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still small. So, I have finished off the zombies now from Forest Dragon. So 4 units of War Master zombies, which I've done as like a group because why would you paint 1 unit at a time? They're so tiny. And did all the basing and drowned myself in tufts, as I said on the last one. I just bought flipping loads of tufts because
you can't buy anything sensibly is the genuine answer to that. You see a product and you're like, oh, one, no, I'll buy 12.
And tufts make bases look better. No matter what bases, you throw a couple of tufts on there, it raises up a couple of levels.
Absolutely. Yeah. These ones are really interesting as well. So these were from Serious Play, who are based in Hale in Cornwall. And something that initially I thought there was something wrong with them, but basically when you push them down, the glue is quite stretchy that holds the tuft together, so you can actually force it into like different shapes and different under rocks really nicely and stuff like that, so it's quite useful. But in my quest for colors, I think I've bought 8 packs, and each pack has between 200 and 300 tufts in, so I have lots now. The trouble is, right, when I get into a project, it really annoys me. Like if I go to B&Q because I'm working on something, I got this off my father-in-law really. I just buy everything I could possibly need and keep the receipt, build what I want, and then anything that's left I take back. But the problem is I'm not very good at taking things back. So what I just end up with is loads and loads of stuff. But I hate being in the middle of a project and running out.
I do exactly the same thing with magnets. I do, because even after measuring how small I need them, I never quite trust myself. So I always buy a size smaller and a size bigger, just in case. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you know, it's the way to do things. So, yeah, I've got loads of stuff. So I've done that. And then also I have been playing with, as revealed on the last episode, Ben and I collaborated to get a Elegoo Mars 2 Pro resin printer. So I've been playing with that and printing out, well, lots of things really, lots of War Master. So I've printed the rest of what I need for 1,000 points. Then I've printed 1,000-ish points of dwarves for Ben Chambers, and then I've printed a load of wood elves. But this week I've started playing around a bit with Mesh Mixer, which for those that don't know is a file that it's a program that you can use to sort of edit and adjust STL files. So only simple things so far. So the Graveguard that Forest Dragon have done have got different banners to banner designs to the skeletons, the normal skeletons. Yeah. And I wanted them to be the same, to be uniform across the force. So I went into Mesh Mixer and I was able to lift the banner off the light skeletons, the normal skeletons, and then take the banner away from the Graveguard and switch that one in, which was quite cool. And then what I'm working on at the moment, and it's more of a learning curve. So I've got YouTube running with some thoughts about Mesh Mixer, but I'm trying to do so. One of the things a vampire army can do is raise skeletons, as you would expect. But those units don't count towards your breakpoint from a rules point of view. So I want them to look different. I don't want to paint them necessarily differently. They might have a bit more mud and stuff on them. So what I've done is, when Gareth sculpted the skeletons, essentially what he's done is he sculpted like 12 different skeletons and then put them all together in different combinations on the base. So there's one which is crawling its way out of the ground. So I've taken that one, and then I've flipped him as well. So I've got 2, and then I've got like the one that looks the most ragged, if that, all skeletons don't look great. I've got him. I've got another one which I've then sunk into the base of it, so he's partly coming out. And then I was just working on this evening, cutting away the spear arm so that I can put another arm in so it looks like it's dragging itself out of the ground, so that I can have they actually look like they are being summoned freshly out of the ground. So yeah, it's really quite fascinating. It's quite interesting. I'm quite enjoying it. The next stage is going to be getting Blender and actually trying to sculpt bits and bobs. But it's quite nice being able to just manipulate the files. It's opened my eyes really to a lot of opportunity. So I ordered a litre bottle of resin this time. I only ordered half a litre last time. I've had a few failures as well, which I think's actually been a good thing, because it can be quite frustrating, because the printing time is like between an hour and 2 hours for War Master figures, depending if they've got banners. To do that and then it doesn't work is a bugger, to be honest. But it does test your resolve in a certain field to actually keep going. And my resolve is often poor, so I'm pleased that I've managed to make my way through. And it's only been because there's a couple of things really. The main one was file size, just a bit of a weird one, where if you try and print something and the file size is too big, it can overwhelm it. And so I had basically filled the build plate completely with skeletons and a couple of other bits, and it was just a bit too much, and the printer didn't really like that. So it would get like a few percent in and then stop, give up, and say, "No, you silly fool! No one needs this many skeletons." And then today I tried printing. So you can download the individual skeletons, but they're not they don't come with support. So I tried putting my own supports in, and to be quite honest, totally bucketed it up because it didn't work at all. And they came out, but it was quite funny because they are skeletons, so it doesn't really matter. But like some of them came out missing legs, and another one a couple had no arms, and it was just a bit of a mess, really. And I said to Harriet, and Harriet said, "Yeah, but that's fine because they're skeletons, aren't they? You just put them partly out of the ground." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea."
That feels like we're hobbying in the future. Just listening to you doing that. That's where we're heading, right? Fully customizable editing for your own miniatures to print out.
Yeah, and so there's a company called Hero Forge where you can go online and pick weapons and all of that stuff, and they'll print it for you. But like this is like that had kind of seemed a bit crazy to me until I got this, and then it's sort of blown my mind a little bit. The fact that it's also things like, so I've bought STL files for some Dark Elves, and now I've got them, I'm just like, could do with a couple more units of Spearmen. Beep. And it is like some kind of dark magic going on next to you. I think the interesting one though is, so Ben and I don't know if you've had the displeasure of going back this far and how many episodes we've done, but we spoke quite passionately about recasting things and our feelings on it.
Oh no, I haven't. No.
Yeah, so we to say we made it clear that we are not a fan would be a slight understatement, but it is an interesting one because, so if you go on to Thingiverse or Cult 3D, you can find a plethora of files of Spartan tanks and stuff like that. Now, in 6mm, to be fair, so in a scale that Games Workshop don't make available, but then you start to say, well, that's not their IP. Obviously, it's Games Workshop's IP, but at the same time, Games Workshop don't make it. So yeah, it's an interesting one for me, especially because I love Epic and I really would like an Epic Heresy army. And I know Epic Heresy armies exist. I've seen them.
Yeah, I'm fully there with you. The I guess recast armies that I've seen, the ones that have been printed out, just again Spartans and printed them out, they don't look as good as the ones you can buy through Forge World or through like online. So I just beside the morality of it, I just think it's backward looking. I think you're using the technology in the wrong way. I think you could be a lot more forward looking in your approach. If you want to print out maybe custom doors for it, I think that's that's how the technology, you can get the most from it. Custom banners, like you say, rearranging things, customizing already existing miniatures. I think that's where the strength lies in it. And like you say, there's a strange ambiguity when so a lot of my friends are into Battlefield Gothic. And the ability to have these scaled down, or whatever scale that you like, Battlefield Gothic ships is amazing. If Games Workshop produced those, I think there'd be an explosion in activity and like an additional third-party bits towards it. I think that's where you get the best from it, not necessarily taking a product, scanning it, and then printing it out for yourself.
No, and I think, to be honest, there's a bit of a red herring to think that you're particularly saving, because although actually, yes, the individual cost of the product might be less, the time, it's quite labor intensive to get it all where you need it, in order
and that's
to print
if it goes right,
and that's if it goes right, and also, you know, as you've already said, the resolution, so the build plate size on the Elegoo, you would have to break something like a Spartan into so many pieces and print it out, and it would take you hours and hours and hours and hours. So yeah, no, I don't.
I guess you have to decide exactly how much your time is worth.
Yeah.
Is it worth your time to spend hours of frustration to learn this new technique, to print it out in bits, when you could just buy the damn thing?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, when it comes to models that are already pre-existing, and you can just go and buy, I'm quite clear on that, as in a kind of, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think where it becomes a little bit more ambiguous is where it's clearly someone else's IP, but it's a miniature that they don't sell, or, well, like for example, the 30k Epic range, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But anyway, even, you know, leaving aside the deep and thoughtful conversation, that is mostly what I've been doing, and I am really excited by even simple things like, so I don't know, I mean, I've put up loads of pictures of these, but you get these little can you see what?
Oh wow, yeah,
you can, so these it's not a great one because
like whites.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a little white. So you get the little strip like that. Now in Mesh Mixer, you can separate the people that know what they're doing will be listening to me and thinking, what an idiot. But you basically, you can separate out the shells. So each of these whites is almost certainly in the file a different shell, as is the base. And then sometimes, like if you've got a banner, the banner will be separate. So you can separate them, and then you can select them individually and move them around. So I've bought the base. I can have infinitely different skeleton units now, because I can just move the skeletons around so they're all ranked up different, and then and this I love, click of a button and it mirrors it, so it's like the same model awesome, but the other way around. I mean, you know, it's just freaking amazing. I love it. It's just so cool. And you can actually, you don't even need Mesh Mixer to do that. Cheetu Box, which is the file that slices everything so that the printer can print it, can do that, can just mirror stuff, which is just amazing, really.
Hobbying in the future.
Yeah, and like terrain, oh my flipping days, terrain. It's just going to be amazing. We've got to get the FDM, because fundamentally, again, for those that don't know, there's two main types for 3D printing. So the resin printer, which is what we've got at the moment, which is usually will do your higher detail, but on a much smaller build plate. Whereas the FDM printers that print plastic but out of a little nozzle, that you can build bigger, but you can't get the same resolution. It's still very good, but it wouldn't really work, certainly for 10 millimeter miniatures. But we need one of those next, Ben, because we need to be able to, we need the build plate size so we can, because it's just mad. You can just go online and look at printingscenery.com Sorry, Miles. We asked you.
No.
We got you on, and I've just suddenly got really excited about 3D
weirdly,
printing.
I had a similar conversation with a friend earlier, and we were discussing printing out the Sagrada Familia for a Necromunda campaign. No, go ahead.
Printing out what? Sorry.
The Sagrada Familia, the church in Barcelona.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing, and then you've got the madness that is these crazy technological people, and I'm sure this is probably easy to them, but to me, who can grab files out of computer games, put them in, and then turn them into a 3D print. So, quite a lot of the Warmaster stuff has been grabbed out of Total War, and then
that's amazing.
And then printed out. Oh my goodness! And it's just ridiculous, isn't it? And as I say, terrain. You just go online and just type it in, 3D printable terrain, and there's just reams of it, and it's gorgeous. A lot of it is just absolutely wonderful. So, yeah, hobbying in the future I just didn't know it could do this. I really didn't. 3D printing was just one of those things on the periphery that I thought, oh, that's quite cool, but I didn't really. But now I realize I'm like, oh,
yeah. You've seen everybody seems to be getting one now. There's an explosion of it.
Well, it's so accessible. This piece of equipment was £245. I'm not saying that's no money, but in this hobby, it's not. It's not an insurmountable amount. And there's so many guides online.
And as we split it between us, if you did it with a mate, it is really quite accessible.
Yeah, and then you just, it's a bit like getting an airbrush. It's that kind of game changer.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, and discovering weathering, which I was going to say earlier, because that was something that Heresy is introduced me to. So anyway, I as you can tell, I could go on about this.
I think we have to cool down a little bit now.
Yeah, got to calm.
Splash you with some water.
Cold shower.
So I'm going to throw in a shout out as we're doing this, because there is a guy who I've been watching online for a little while called Liam Paint Stuff, who 3D prints, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but 3D prints components to upgrade his salamanders, and he does green stuff work as well. But for example, changes the pauldrons, breastplates, etc. And his salamanders are just phenomenal. Frankly, absolutely superb. So early shout out rather than doing it in the community section. Liam Paint Stuff.
Do you love me some salamanders?
He's got a wonderful tutorial for how to do flame swords as well. So well worth checking out on Instagram for that, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking of tutorials and Instagrams, old man Ben with his old man skills.
Old man Ben.
Traditional sculpting. Ben Chambers said to me earlier, I said to him I was playing around with Mesh Mixer. He said, how many times did you restart? And I said, restart? That's what the undo button is for. It's not green stuff like the old man.
Yeah.
I've just divided and annoyed a large portion of this. I should say I do think green stuff is amazing. I'm just crap at it.
Yeah, and that's been my hobby for the last 2 weeks. More green stuff. So I don't know what the last thing I did when we spoke.
Probably, I'm just going to go out on a limb, but I expect it was fur or a beard.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
What do we got? The best way I find of doing this is actually going to our Instagram account and having a look. See what it says.
I would, but all of the stuff I post is so far down now because it gets no interest comparatively.
Okay, so I finished. I'm going to dismiss that because it's
okay.
Harkon, which was the guy that I based on Haldor Ice Pelt. I did him. I finished him. Really happy with him. So I wanted a lieutenant to replace the lieutenant from the box set because I wanted my lieutenant to be a lot more dynamic, moving forward, sort of leading from the front. So I used Haldor Ice Pelt, resculpted a head. Tried. It was actually quite cool working backwards because with the others, the ancients, not the ancients, the Blade Guard. I'd been getting a Blade Guard and trying to make them Space Wolf, whereas this one I was getting a Space Wolf and trying to make him Blade Guard. So I had to put like the wings on the knees, the little kind of decorations on the knee pads, add a tilting shield, all those kind of things. So to bring him in line with the others, I'm still very, very chuffed with him.
He looks great, mate.
Really
Oh
happy
yeah,
with him.
the green stuff, yeah, absolutely gorgeous.
And then I've reworked. I got a bit upset with the two that I did at the start of the year. I don't know if you remember, Dan, the Rune Priest, Phobos Rune Priest, and Phobos Captain.
Oh yeah.
So I pulled them out and had a look, and decided to basically strip all the green stuff and I'd done off on them at the start of the year and redo it because I just completely do it differently now. Just goes to show how quickly your own hobby can move on. Like in a space of a year, I hadn't even got around to undercoating those, and I'd already sort of gotten better at something. So stripped the bits off of those and did those, and then finally I did my standard bearer, which that Blade Guard Ancient just killed me for weeks, months staring at it, trying to work out how to make it a Space Wolf. And then Henry Steele suggested giving him a bare arm to make him look proper techno barbarian. And from the moment I stuck the bare arm on, the next bit kind of fell into place, and then the next bit, and then the next bit, and the next bit. And then he was done. And then I was looking at the banner and I thought, what if it was like a Viking burial? Because everyone, I suppose, knows what a Viking burial looks like in some respect or another. The guy laid out in the boat or, on the pyre or whatever, with all their gubbins around them. So I tried to do that, and it worked really well. So I'm really chuffed with him too, actually.
I just think
it is really striking. I think you captured that really well. The Viking funeral-esque aspect to it. Yeah, that definitely comes across.
With a raven on top.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
What Games Workshop need to do is they need to release a wolf scale helm. I keep saying that every episode. Somewhere on a kit there needs to be a wolf scale helm that isn't resin, right? So if somebody please do that. But also packets of little things, like the same as the skulls, but like Nurglings and the little tree spirits and ravens and birds and teddy bears or what, something, little snotlings, little bits. No, I'm like the little things that
I know, but I don't think you're serious about teddy bears.
No, I'm not serious.
That's why I'm laughing.
Although I did sculpt a teddy bear on top of my Mummakill in the. Do you remember
Oh yeah.
They all gave us a Mummakill for in Games Workshop, and we had to do something with it. And I turned it into the howdah for like the king, and he had like one of those sort of cushion seating areas, and I put a teddy bear in it, and no one noticed it for about 2 months, and then Mike was like, "Why is there a teddy bear on your?" I was like, "Well, you should have looked carefully." But there he was, sat there with a teddy bear. But I think that would be really cool.
I jest about Instagram, but it has been wonderful to see the love that the stuff you've done has got, because it's really good, and you've put a lot of time and effort and thought into each one, as is shown by the story that each one comes with, which is wonderful. And just generally, like you've just said, the thought process, I think it's something I do envy, that you look at a model and you've got this story and these themes, and you tell that story through the miniature, and you're really doing it with these. I mean, I've seen it on an army-wide scale, like with your Iron Snakes, but you always bring it down to the individuals as well, and this is even more so. And it's just wonderful seeing your hobby skill be able to then create that stuff. I just love it. It's so exciting. It's a shame it's not corn, but it's fair enough.
Do you say that, but I've been genuinely looking at this and thinking, do you know what army would be really cool with all these skulls and fur? I could do a chaos army. That would be cool.
You could.
With the extra chainmail, I could really get my teeth into that green stuff wise. But it's been what I'm working on at the moment is the 3 Blade Guard themselves. I've done a few things with them, so changed the sword arms around and moved them into a sideways position so they look like they're in a shield wall, because
nice.
The name I've changed the Blade Guard to in my army is Skullborg, which is Old Norse for shield wall. So they are the shields of Ragnar, as it were. So their job on the battlefield is to stay as close to him and stop him from getting isolated. Because I think whenever I read stories about Ragnar, that is always what he does. He's just such a competent fighter and so aggressive that he's quite often 30 foot ahead of his wolf guard, within 10 minutes. And they're like desperately trying to keep up. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if now he's been reborn as a Primaris, which effectively the reason why he got killed was because he isolated himself fighting Ghazghkull Thraka, and his Wolfguard just couldn't be there to sort of protect him in that last moment and drag him off the battlefield. So he ended up having to be sort of basically a new mission to get his body back, which is, an absolute state. And the story, the audiobook is told through the eyes of the company Skald, which I'm desperate to sculpt. I want to sculpt a Skald because that would be brilliant. And he's absolutely broken that they couldn't keep up with him and at least recover his body. And that's wicked because that's really the sort of attitude that the Huskarls, the bodyguards of Lords would have had. They'd have absolutely broken them not to have been able to do that. So I figured that in the rebirth, there would be these guys whose sole job it is to stop Ragnar from getting done in again. So that's where they came from. So I'm working on them at the moment. I'm really happy. Tried some hair braids, which was tough, real tough. Not sure how I feel about them, but they look all right.
I think you should model them on yourself initially.
If I sit still for long enough, Joe does braid my hair.
Nice.
I think with something like the braids, you're going to get that kind of individual definition with the hairs when it comes to the paint. I don't think you should. I think you've struck a really nice balance there. You don't want to necessarily over-engineer them. You don't want to sculpt in those individual lines because it'll look a little bit messy. Doing that, leaving it slightly barer, gives you the opportunity to make those impressions with a paintbrush.
Yeah. I completely agree. That's what I thought when I did it, because when it was still squishy, I did try and have a go, and then I thought, no, I'm just going to destroy it. I'm going to absolutely ruin it. So I'd just leave it and then do it with the paintbrush.
Yeah, and you find out a lot of Games Workshop sculpts, the way they put their braids, that the individual braids themselves are bare. They're to make it cleaner because it's already quite complex surface you're working with. So knowing when to leave those gaps to paint. I mean, charts your development as a sculptor, knowing when to put the embellishment and when not to. Yeah.
That, and I don't have a 3D printer to just do the DL and then print it out.
Print out a braid.
It's going to come to the point where
I think I'm a little way off from that.
Right, so should we wrap up the hobby desk and move on to some of the releases, 40k wise? I think
sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. Oh, jinx!
Oh. The listeners would love it if I just didn't talk for the next section. I think that would be fine. Right. Okay, welcome listeners to the grim darkness of the far future. Not quite so grim because we have Miles with us, which is great. Although you do like the old bit of the weathering, don't you? So maybe more grim than normal.
Yeah, the last thing I did was a Space Marine being crushed by a dreadnought, and I'm not sure whether the dreadnought crushing him would kill him first or the slight pool of water underneath him that'll drown him.
Now that is right. Okay. Very grim and dark.
It's 2020. Let's do it.
I was going to say it's 2020. It wouldn't be either one of those things. It would be a freak appearance of a meteor or something. So yeah. So the grim darkness. Ben, you have just basically intrigued us both with your response to something to do with Nurgle and the Mechanicum.
Yeah. So the preview was this weekend, and they announced the next campaign book. I can't remember the one
Oh,
they
that
announced
explains it. You know, I was out completely lost, but of course I was working and I didn't get in on the preview until after that section. I was thinking, what on earth are you talking about?
So I did they release the last one, the Crusade pack? I can't remember seeing it coming out. But anyway, so the first Crusade pack was the Void one for the Necrons. I might have missed that. Quite possible. But this one is a new Crusade pack, and it is a story one, so like a big one. And I'm interested that they're making these decisions to make the Crusade packs have such a big impact on the world, because this one is Abaddon has basically told Typhus to have a go at Metallica, not the band, the planet. So you got to love these kind of names, because you know full well that they were written in the 80s when the Games Workshop were all listening to heavy metal. And I'm really on the fence with it, because I love the idea, again, the like Age of Sigmar, that the narrative is in these releases, and we're going to get something out of it. But there's only so much of a battering that the Imperium can take now before we're going to need to just restart the whole thing, because Metallica is I believe like in the top 5 Forge Worlds. We're talking like big important thing, and to lose Metallica would be catastrophic for the Imperium. And I know that's cool, but in some ways, because it's high stakes, and campaigns with high stakes are great, but it feels a little bit too high stakes to me. Vigilus was cool. No one had heard of Vigilus. It was a high stakes planet, and they made it a high stakes planet by writing narrative that it was a high stakes planet because of the Imperial Knights. But to have a shot at Metallica, there's a little part of me that I'm super excited by the whole thing, because I really like the Crusade rules, and I just loved that section in the Space Wolf Codex, and I've loved that section in the Space Marine Codex. And I love the idea of creating and painting narrative armies and sculpting narrative characters to play, to replace characters in your army. I just think the hobby box is blown open by that rule set, and I think it's going to be fantastic. And the more they develop it, the better. But there is a little part of my mind that thinks, if Metallica goes, where it's like it's the Genestead occults on Terra. What the actual flippity flip? So it's just a little bit too far in my mind. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. Always.
Just listen to Iron Maiden instead.
Yeah. There's probably a Forge World called Iron Maiden there,
yeah,
or
100%.
Ionus Madonna. Yeah. But that's my thoughts on it. But it's a really cool release. I'm really excited about it.
It's also allowed them to make the most horrendous looking pizza oven you have ever seen. That Nurgle piece of terrain.
Yeah.
You seen that?
No.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Oh, I've got a coffee arriving. Excuse me, one moment. Talk amongst thyselves.
Okay. Yeah, Metallica. I guess it could potentially set up a counter crusade.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess this is the way offhand how I probably handle it. Metallica, like you say, it's massively important to the Imperium. Has a huge industrial impact, not only for itself but sector wide.
Yeah.
That would be just a pillar being removed to watch it collapse. So even if Metallica were to fall to the traitors, Abaddon isn't stupid enough to strip the planet and scuttle it. He used it in his own progressing campaigns. I think that world is too important to extinguish. Instead, it's going to be a battlefield that will be fought over for eternity until one side or both sides exhaust each other.
A bit like Armageddon.
Yes,
that's exactly
the end of
what I was
Armageddon.
just going to say.
Because that's just a dust ball now, isn't it? Practically?
Yeah, I mean, ADB at the end of his novel, he encapsulated the entirety of this universe. That Armageddon is a jewel that is no longer, that's lost its luster. They've ravaged the world so intensively that it's no longer a grade A industrial planet. It's going to be downgraded, so it won't receive additional resources from the Imperium to defend itself, to reinforce itself, to the orcs, even though they've been fought off, and I'm doing the air quotes thing, they've ruined it as a planet effectively. Yeah, it's a Pyrrhic victory in its truest sense.
Have you guys both read the Beast Arises series?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if Ben knows the reveal or not, you see, Miles, so for that.
Okay, yeah, keep it stum. I don't. Do you care about the
Do you care?
No.
So
should we put a trigger warning up for the listeners?
Spoiler warning.
Yeah, spoiler warning.
So it turns out that Armageddon is actually Ulanor.
Is it?
Yeah. And it was teleported there because that's the big thing that the orcs have is teleportation, badassery in the Beast Arises. And then the Imperium Mechanicum sort of reverse. I think this is right, Miles. They reverse engineer it, don't they? And then they teleport it to that position and make it into a Forge World to defend it, because it's like a rallying banner point thing for orcs.
Yeah, I think it was the point of origin for the race.
Mm.
So they either have like a psychic connection or a spiritual connection to this world, and they'll do whatever it takes to.
It's amazing.
That's amazing.
It's a cool little twist, right?
I mean, like always, when you get a series with different writers, there are high points and low points in those books. But I do love them as a series. The creation of the Death Watch is in there. That obviously that big reveal, and the whole Last Wall protocol just makes you want to run around shouting the last wall and attacking things. Well, it does me anyway, but I'm a bit loopy.
Brilliant. That's ace.
So there you go. Little snippet there. I think I tend to agree with Miles in as much as I think it'll become like you just said, actually, the next Armageddon. I think there's something to be said for taking a world that exists and setting a story there, because it kind of talks to people, it speaks to people that would remember that world from background, etc., and allows them to flesh it out a bit. I still get a bit wibbly about the Gene Stealers on Terra thing. I totally agree with you there. That same. Just annoys me.
Too far. That was.
It's too much. But then I do think it's important to have some of that sort of pre-existing stuff, because actually the buy-in to Vigilus, I mean, it took an awful lot to a lot of books and all sorts. Although I did end
fabulous books,
to be fair. Oh yeah, and I liked the whole idea of the Necromunda Gauntlet, I think it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that Vigilus is in. So yeah, that was good. So
I don't think there was a great deal else.
The battle forces have come along, haven't they now?
Yeah, they have. Yeah. There's some nice ones, actually. I really like. I think the thing I like the most that they've done with the Space Marines, and I'd like to see it a bit more for the other races, other armies, is that they've done a different sort of battle box for each of the chapters, but they're completely legit for any Space Marine, if that makes any sense. You might get like
paint them a different color.
Yeah, you might get a different upgrade sprue in it, but like the Blood Angels one, I think has got aggressors and something else. So then the Space Wolf one is much more the lighter armor and the little Warjack kind of suit. I'm so good with the names, awesome. But that, so I think they're really cool, because it means that you're not just stuck with one, and it would be really nice for them to have done, say, the same thing with Eldar and done a few craft worlds and put a different selection of sprues in, and the same with the Orcs. So you had like a Speed Freaks one and a sort of mech one where you've got more of the dreadnoughts and killer cans, that kind of stuff. But I guess always in the back of my mind at the moment, I think about production capacity, and then there must be things like we were just discussing before we came on air. Kill Team, Rogue Trader doesn't appear to be on sale anymore. I don't know when that was gone or lost. I'm sure the models will come back in some form or another, just like a lot of the Blackstone Fortress ones will. But I'm almost certain that a lot of the reason why they're gone and not are not on the shelf is because the production capacity is just not there. So I always got to think about that. It'll come back there when COVID has moved its merry way on.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. 2021, be back up fully running. We can meet people. We can actually embrace one another again.
I know.
Cheek to cheek.
We won't know what to do with ourselves though. When I order something again online and it turns up the next day, I mean, it's
going to events and like physically standing closer than 2 meters. That's going to be an odd one without a mask.
Do you find watching stuff on television's weird? Where people are like, they're just meeting up and you're like, what? No, you can't. Oh,
people in cinemas. People in cinemas really trigger me now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because my Royal Mail have recently made it mandatory to wear a face mask whilst indoors at any of their sites as an employee. And now I'm right on that sort of tipping point now between it being weird and it being weird not to be wearing it.
Yeah.
So like even when I'm on my own, sat on my own at my desk or in the canteen or whatever, I'm like putting it on, it's very. I walked into a I walked into a Tesco's. Now this is the tangent. I walked into a Tesco's. I bought some fuel. And I just walked into Tesco's and I was in the queue and I realized I hadn't put my mask on. And I went, oh shit, I haven't got a mask. I got freaked out. I just had this kind of, oh, I'm going to be arrested.
You're the problem. You're the problem.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I spend most of my day, or not most of my day, but most of my morning saying to my postman, right, it doesn't work if it isn't over your nose. Put it up. I have taken to just like outright insults now. Like, put that face away. It's frightening me. It's one of my classics. So, but yeah, it's
on that bombshell. Should we move on to ages?
No, because I wanted to ask because as it's nothing to do with face mask now, but Mars is heresy. Player, painter, that's what I'm sure you do more, but that's what I know.
Yeah, sure.
Video for. But so and with Heresy comes crazy ass, awesome, out there designs for tanks.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the new, not Heresy, the Gladius sort of family? Is it Gladius? Gladiator family?
Are those the anti-grav
Primaris? Yeah, the anti-grav Primaris, the new ones.
The new Predators.
So, just interested. I'm not. That's not like setting you up to say one way or the other. Just interested.
This is setting me up for a rant here. No, the Gronard in me groans a little bit because this universe has always been about the fall of humanity. It's always, from my reading of it, these are like the last few dregs, the last few beats of humanity before it's extinguished. Now, to have technology that's on par with Elder, it feels a little counterintuitive. However, getting rid of that aside, the kits are goddamn gorgeous. I do think they suffer a little bit from overdoing it, so putting guns on every available orifice that could possibly fit them. However, this universe has always suffered from that. I mean, look at the Power Fist, for God's sake. How ludicrous of a weapon is that?
Yeah. But no, the best thing is when you stick a chainsaw on a Power Fist and you get a chain.
Yes, and it somehow damages armor better. Yeah, I'm all in at that point. No, I think it's one of those things, weirdly, because it's new and it's because I haven't seen it before in 30 years worth of history. I'm kind of doing a bit of a double take. But next year I hope to develop a Primaris army to get me over that hump to understand why these things are so popular. I've recently seen Kirill Kniv. Today he has just posted up his own Repulsor, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Multi-award winning, unbelievable non-metallic artist, god with a brush. And oh my lord, he's used a lot of weathering techniques on it. It looks natural. He's used Sons of Medusa. I think of all the chapters from the Badab Wars, I think the Sons of Medusas are in there, but they have possibly the ugliest color scheme of the lot, like this bright lime green. Yet somehow that painter, that man, has made to make them look good. On the whole, as a miniature painter, I'm a big fan. As a lore enthusiast, I'm coming around to the idea.
I was sold on the lore. I was a bit on the fence actually, because right back at the start when the Repulsor came out, one of the things about 40k that I always kind of is tracks on the ground. Tracks on the ground, yes. Boots on the ground, that kind of solid foundation in earth. And that was the Imperium in almost every way. And you get the old floaty thing, but the land speeder didn't, for me, it felt fast and sort of floaty. Didn't feel solid and all that warlike. Mm-hmm. And then we read the opening book of Dark Imperium, and it sold me in Scepters dropping out the sky with the Space Wolf like barreling through the building with his twin heavy bolters like roaring away. I thought that sold me on those. But the bit that I really liked was when the Chaos Marines didn't have a clue what this repulsor thing was, that they'd literally just dropped from sub-orbit, and it just hit the floor like in a big kind of dust, like you can imagine it just coming everywhere. Uh-huh. And then he thought it'd be a good idea if you roll underneath it, I can put a melter bomb underneath it and blow this thing to bits. And he rolled underneath the repulsor plates, and that's when he realised it was absolutely nothing like an Eldar tank. It just pummeled him flat, like a millimetre thin, and he was gone. And I was like, that is amazing.
That is quite cool.
And
I could get on board with that.
Yeah, the idea that it's like Eldar technology, but just nowhere near as elegant or refined. It just smashes the floor and gravity into submission.
It's like Eldar technology, but in brutalist design.
Yeah. And that kind of sold me. Yeah. That's cool. I thought that'd be an interesting one to get.
It is interesting.
Get another view. So, I must admit, I do like that battle force, the sneaky Marine battle force. But when I finish printing everything in 10 mil, it's gonna be weird painting a 28 mil miniature. I'll be like, whoa, look at all this space.
You can just freehand things on it, Ben.
Yeah. Righty. So should we move on to the Mortal Realms now?
Yes. Through the Realm Gate. Or the Noctilith Crown. Although no, because that's not actually a gate, is it? It just looks like one.
I'm just going to start with Sigvald.
Sigvald. Let's talk about. Come on, he's the one we all want to talk about. We could build up to it. We can talk about the other things that were really. I can't even remember what they were. Some kind of Slaanesh. Who cares? Sigvald. That thing's amazing.
It is stunning, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. It's going to be a model we see in Golden Demon for years, decades, maybe.
Yeah.
As long as they produce that kit.
I mean, coming from like more of a Horus Heresy background, I feel like I'm the Horus Heresy guy of the podcast now. Okay, I'll take that on. I'm happy to wear that mantle. it's a good grimdark, rusted mantle, weathered mantle to wear. You're going to see so many conversions of Demon Fulgrim with that. Yeah. I think even Sanguinius, you're going to see a lot of conversions with him with that.
Sanguinius would be cool, wouldn't it?
It would be nice to see what people could do with it. Certainly, he has the physique for it. He has the aesthetic. Why not? We've seen crazier things before.
Yeah,
I loved his video.
Yeah,
I love their videos.
Yeah.
At the moment.
The Age of Sigmar videos are always brilliant. I think they're always just that tongue-in-cheek. What did someone call it? Grimbright. Grimbright. Loved it. Because it's so grim, but also you get like this little veneer of humor and hope that I just think changes the whole perspective a bit. But the idea of him being like a superstar with the roadies doing his makeup I just thought it was brilliant. I can imagine them all polishing his armor before he's unleashed on order.
Yeah, polishing his mirrored shield.
Yeah, and again, I remember seeing the first Sigvald and just my jaw hit the floor because I'd not really seen non-metal metallics done as well as that anywhere else. I mean, at the time Rackham was doing it and it looked weird. It wasn't quite there. And I don't know who painted it, but It's just superb.
I think it was Darren Latham.
It wouldn't surprise me. It really would.
I know he did a lot of the non-metallic work at the time. He was like the go-to, but again, it could be somebody else.
I mean, like the blending on the shield alone, if you just take that one thing, it's flawless, absolutely flawless. And it stood out from all the other models because it was a clean looking Chaos model. You know, it almost didn't look like a Chaos model. And it was painted in that new way. And I love the fact that whoever has done the new one has gone, well, let's do exactly the same again. We normally paint everything in true metal metallics for every metal. Let's do this one in non-metal metallics. And,
yeah, they've done a really good job of it. Really, I mean, look at his chest, the blending there, the reflections they've got on there. It's non-metallic, but in a very heavier metal style.
I was literally just about to say that. It's so cleanly done.
Clean. It's very clean, very bright, very noticeable, but it still feels like reflective armor.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Absolutely
I think
wonderful.
what I want to see though, Miles, is as a challenge. It's you got to do it so like he's on like a sync base, and something on the base, like an enemy, is reflected in the shield. That's what
I think we talked about this before, didn't we? That he has a mirrored shield. How do you go about creating that mirror? I know you can buy wax metallic paints that once they've cured, you can polish them. It gives you somewhat of a mirrored sheen. You can buy mirror paint as well, but I haven't really seen that in person. I'm not quite sold on the efficacy of it. I think I saw like a Wish advert, a Wish.com advert. So,
wow, that's very mundane.
Wish?
When we talk about Sigvald, Slaanesh, and Wish, this could go very strangely.
Wish.com, that's how boring my life is. I get advertisements ping back for mirrored paint. I don't get any of the like dildo forks other people get.
One of the guys I paint with, used to paint with a lot. Haven't been around such a long time because of lockdowns, but he had a chrome paint that came in a pen. Interestingly, like super shiny metal, but not very reflective. So, be interested to see like the mirror version. The other one I've seen people do is getting graphite powder, putting that on and then polishing it, like the pigment, almost the powder, and then polishing that. That worked quite well. But
it's going to be I think when you see it in different painters' hands, just seeing so Ben Comets, very well known painter, he did a bust of, I think it was Lancelot.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I've seen this effect on armor, but he painted trees
as in the reflection.
In the reflections, but they were distorted in line with the armor.
Oh wow!
It's just unbelievable. And you're looking at it; it looks natural, but you can't quite work out what it is, and then in the explanation you give it. So it's going to be fascinating to see what people can do with that reflective shield and exactly what they want to reflect in the. I think you need to think of place with that miniature. With non-metallics, successful non-metallics, they all rely on ambient tones. So you have to think about the base. Is he set on a fire planet? Is he set mainly at snow? And you need the, dominant color of the base to be reflected on that mirror. Almost like a SEN, Sky Earth Metal. Where you have kind of like the golden ground underneath and then the turquoise up top. It's like you say, it's going to be one of those pieces you're going to see again and again and again in the hands of real masters. I can't wait to see the kinds of paint jobs this miniature will inspire.
Have you had people commission one yet?
No, none yet, but I will be painting them at least 2 up for three maybe for the Patreon. I'd love to do one in true metallic, non-metallic gold, and then one in turquoise.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes.
So there's a painter at Games Workshop, Joe. I can't
pronounce his name either.
I can't pronounce his name, but unbelievable painter, and he painted his in turquoise, and I'd love to pay tribute to that, unless he does it first, in which case he's mastered it already. I don't need to do it, but definitely at least 2 for I guess myself. I guess I'd be keeping them unless anybody wants to buy them off me. But definitely at least 2.
That's awesome. It's awesome. And alongside him as well, it is worth saying that after last week saying what we needed was mortal Slaanesh warrior, they've gone and released two units, and they are bloody lovely.
I think they are the equivalent of the larger, so like my
Blood Warriors,
Wrathmongers.
Yeah.
That size thing, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're just fantastic. And there's so many. So it's one kit makes two variants, and if you didn't use the variants for the other, those bits are so usable in other things. Like the helmets are brilliant. Going to be a great unit.
Yeah, the faces I'm particularly looking forward to. I think you can make them look really, really creepy. The faces that they've done, and bizarrely enough, I'd love to see them used by Dark Elder players. Because I think they'd make excellent, I guess, Trueborn equivalent, even though Trueborn aren't a thing anymore. More customized, maybe even got a kill team, Dark Elder pieces.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's great how they've gone back to the Slaanesh-y sort of. They're clearly Slaanesh-y, aren't they? They undoubtedly are. But I think what did I say last week, or it was like they're Slaanesh-y without just making very weird people overly excited, I think was my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes.
They got more threat to them, haven't they? There's more of a.
But they look like the old Realms of Chaos artwork.
We said that last time. They
exactly what you want.
Yeah, they do, don't they? That kind of, brutal. I think you should always be. When I look at a Chaos model, I want to be frightened by it in some way, not in a kind of run away from it.
Sure.
But imagine
trying to bait them if that's how you responded.
I know, but what I mean is if that thing was blown up into like a person walking down literally down the street 100 meters away, you'd be worried significantly. And before it would just look like they didn't look like anything threatening, whereas those guys look truly terrifying. One of them has a demon coming out of his shield, for goodness sake. It's just, I could imagine them being something that would ruin on a battlefield, that would go toe to toe with like things like the Wrathmongers. And they're the champions of that god, and I think that's brilliant. I really do. I think they look brilliant.
Yeah, hit it out the park. Like you said, it's going to be it's paradise, especially for like Inquisitor 28 modelers, people who like doing Necromunda, cult gangs, anybody in Horus Heresy. I think there's just a plethora of different bits you can use on there for Emperor's Children, Fallen Emperor's Children, Night Lords.
Yeah,
it's just such a versatile. And if you're collecting war bands as well, just such a good kit to exploit.
I'd now love to see what they do with Slaanesh Chaos Space Marines. Seeing how lovely they've done those guys. Obviously, owing to the rather cornate side of me, I want to see berserkers and that. But actually, I wouldn't be so upset if Slaanesh Marines got it first, because I think they're the ones now that look the most dated, maybe, that have now got the most opportunity with these cool new kits.
Yeah.
We've also had a roadmap for Underworlds this week, haven't we?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Underworlds released this week, that Chaos Warband, again, Chaos, and just absolutely banging 4 models. Just brilliant. Wonderful sorceress, and there's 3 Chaos Warriors. It's great.
Yeah, the sisters. I mean, what can you say? It's nice seeing female sculpts that aren't overly sexualized.
Yeah.
It's not okay if you live in the Chaos Waste. If you spend your life battering your fellow man, your fellow woman, your fellow demon, your fellow beast into the ground with your bare hands, enough to ascend through the path of glory to earn chaos armor, you aren't going to look like a porn star.
No, you are not. No.
It's a very rough life choice you've chosen there to pursue.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've become aware of from the Marathi book is the exploring the chaos. What is the place where I can never remember the name of where Archeon
the Varan Spire?
The Varan Spire and the areas around that.
The All Points.
All Points. And talking about the farmers that live there and the people who live there and how they're just people getting on with life, trying to live life, but chaos is just part of their life. You know, they worship the chaos gods and they kind of get protected by it because in some ways we all know that those things can't exist without food, for example, and armor. So it's really awesome to start to see that kind of narrative coming through in warbands like that, where these two sisters have grown up following the path of chaos and earning their place amongst, you know, amongst the warriors. I just think it's great. I really do. I think Age of Sigmar has come on so far.
Do you reckon, like in the Varan Spire, like Dominoes would do like little packs of dipping blood or something? You know, food.
Or like when you're going to play a game of chess, you'd have to sacrifice a goat or something before you play.
Yeah.
No, you play with slaves, wouldn't you?
Oh,
yeah, you probably would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put certainly a different spin on the Queen's Gambit.
I haven't seen that. Keep meaning to watch
So
it.
good. It's so good.
Yeah, I keep meaning to watch that.
Me too.
Righty, so shall we move on to the community section, Miles? Because that's the one I'm most excited about hearing. Oh, Dan's got every time I do this, you're like, oh. Go on.
Well, I feel bad now. No, I just wanted to say, like, what I love about Sigvald so much is how it you could take the original Sigvald, and that is just the story of Warhammer Fantasy to Age of Sigmar and the transformation, in my eyes anyway. Like, none of the stuff that has been wasted and is just completely gone. It's just been made more freaking awesome, to be quite honest. I just, because I love obviously doing War Master. I mean, I absolutely love the old world. I love it, and I'm rediscovering a love for it. But in no way has that diminished how much I love Age of Sigmar. And I just love. I just think that model, when I first saw it, for me, that's what it spoke to me. It was just like this is the tale of the journey, and it looks bloody badass. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. That's why I put my hand up.
That's an awesome note to finish on.
You know, the reason I started putting my hand up is because we use Microsoft Teams at work now, and you have to click and put your hand up if you want to say anything. So I've sort of it's built into me. Yeah, I have changed my background now though, so I've got like a Christmas tree and a snowy scene. So anyway, let's get into the community section. Hail, glorious community. We have come at last, after our dithering and my random cutting Ben off, to the community section where Miles has got some really exciting stuff to talk about that he's going to be doing. So what we're going to do, we'll hand over to him and get excited about that project.
Oh my gosh! Okay, I got
on the spot.
I did this to Henry as well. So
you know what this feels like? You're at a group meeting and you've had to write your name down on a little white tag, and you put it on, and you have to go around individually. You have to say, "Hi, I'm Miles. I run Lil Legend Studio." Let's presenter voice. Hello, everyone. Okay, so for the past 4 years, I think it is. I've been running a Patreon. I'm a professional commission painter, and alongside this, I obviously get asked a lot of questions: how to paint this, how do you do that? And I found I was answering a lot of the same questions again and again and again, but I wasn't answering them really to completion. I wasn't really answering fully enough, because the paint recipes that I employ, it's a bit like French cooking, right? So you can understand each stage, but unless you understand where to place them and in which, I guess, combination in relation to one another, it won't really work. So, bought a load of equipment, things to film myself, and it's trundled along rather nicely so far. The Patreon has been absolute godsend. I mean, as a commission painter, you always feel like you're on the edge of disaster. You're walking that tightrope without kind of like a safety net underneath you. If I lose a hand, oh my god, I'm ballsed up. Perhaps I should insure it like David Beckham did his hand.
Yeah.
Wonder how much I can insure it for. Anyway, I'll Google that later. I started the Patreon partly to show off how to do these techniques, how to develop you as a painter, and partly to help me financially have a son, which has been fantastic. I get to have a little family because of this silly little hobby we're all engaged with. But anyway, it's the Advent calendar started as a bit of a joke that I give away something every day. I do a tutorial. Then the next year, the people are asking me, there's an expectation. This year, people have been asking as early as May, are you doing another tutorial? Are you doing another Advent calendar this year? Yeah, okay. This year, I've really gone all out. I've managed to get some artwork done by a guy called, let me get this right, because I keep mispronouncing his studio name, Spavena Studio. It's a gentleman, weirdly enough, who lives in Japan. Only found this out the other day. But he's done me some really nice Rogue Trader-esque artwork. So really retros, 80s, hair metal stuff. And every day there'll be a new piece of artwork going up, but that's not it. There'll be a brand new tutorial for every single day of the month. So as we've talked about previously, I'm more known for my work in the Horus Heresy. It's been one of those self-fulfilling prophecies that as a commission painter, I need to take on work. That work's primarily been Primarchs and Horus Heresy armies. People see the work, they like it, they want to buy more. Brilliant. So that has led to a cycle where most of the work is centered around the Horus Heresy. However, with the teaching modules on the Patreon itself, I've always tried to make it as broadly applicable as possible. So if you're painting black armor and just staring, well, you can use that exact same recipe on any armored miniature across any range. It's the application and the color scheme that matters most. So if you see something that works, the Patreon has been designed and the videos have been designed as a jumping off point for creativity. You see the video, you take elements of it, you adapt it, you change it to your own needs. It's not a definitive, you must do it this way or you won't end up with a result. I try, and this is the ethos that kind of underpins everything. I try and give you the tools to make your own choices.
Yeah.
And that I like to think that that's reflected in every single release, be it PDF tutorial or video tutorial series. So that's what you'll be getting every single day in December. The first day, actually, I'm giving out a sticker to all patrons. And I didn't really think this through because currently we have something like 460 people on there, 470-ish. My wife doesn't know this yet, but she'll be helping me with that. She'll be helping me. I'll have to buy something extra nice this Christmas. Otherwise, I'm not going to see the next one. Alongside this, I'm also very fortunate to be sponsored by a couple of companies in the community. So Redgrass Games, for example, who produce, I guess I'm contracted to say this, but they do the best wet palette on the market. It's something I use every day. I haven't come across a better one so far. They've been awfully generous sending a care package over to give away to qualifying patrons. Have stuff from Unreal Wargaming, resin bases. Do some amazing, and that's why I've based my entire Istvan force on. They're rubble bases, rather. And also airbrushes.com have sent a bunch of different weathering, rain stains, and primary color set, which is a really nice set to use if you want to develop your sense of color theory and developing skin tones. There are 2 videos already up on the Patreon. How to mix custom skin tones using nothing but the primary colors plus black and white. and it guides you through the process of how to make your own skin tone. So you match it against your thumb, and then you develop it on a small bust. So that's up there. It's one of my favorite videos I've done this year.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it feels a bit like magic doing it. It's lovely to do it at events, like in person, to see kind of like that light go on behind somebody's eyes. Like, oh my God, I can do this. That's such a joy to partake in.
Did you ever? Sorry to interrupt, but it's on topic. Did you ever see the Pathe video, or ever see people mixing foundation?
No, I haven't.
There's a great Pathe video that I saw at a stately home, the National Trust property thing, and they used to mix people's foundation with them there using like basically primary colors, but they were kind of more pastel ones.
Yeah.
And
no way!
They just mix these powders together and then come up with a skin tone. And I was just standing looking at this, and I watched the video through like 4 times. And Joe's like, "Are you going to leave this room?" I'm like, "No, I am all right." This video is amazing. She's like, "It's about makeup," and I was, "No, this is more than makeup. My mind has just exploded out of my ears.
This is the essence of color, right here." When you see it done for the first, it's like seeing somebody explain a magic trick to you, then doing it and still not understanding how they did it.
That's exactly what was happening.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, everyone out there, you. Okay, probably not the best sales pitch in the world, but give it a try for yourself. Pick out the primary colors, take black and white, mix the primary colors in a big gloop in the middle of your wet palette or your palette, then modulate it with white and black and see if you can match your own skin tone. It's a great exercise to get you used to color theory, color mixing and matching, and understanding exactly what you can do with primary colors and how you can mix them into already existing color schemes to both deepen shadows, brighten up saturation. You could do a whole heap with primary colors. A lot of people, for example, don't have like a bright yellow in their collection. That's criminal. That blows my mind. You don't have like a nice bright yellow.
What would you count as a bright yellow, Mars?
So it's a primary color. When you look at you have a color wheel in front of you. Actually, do you have a color wheel in front of you? Aha. Yes, we do. Okay. So look at the color wheel. So this is one of the little magic tricks I love doing to new students. What color naturally appears to be the darkest on the color wheel?
Violet? Yeah.
So violet to blue. In actuality is navy blue. That's the darkest naturally occurring color that there is. So we can say that has the lowest value of any color, and value is the scale from white to black. Now, which color naturally appears to be the brightest?
Well, that is yellow.
Yeah, exactly. So when you are highlighting miniatures or when you're shading miniatures, try and add a pinch of yellow to the highlight, and that knocks off any chalkiness to the paint. And conversely, if you're adding any shadows, try and adding a touch of navy blue in there, and that'll deepen the shadows without making them look uninteresting.
Wow.
I love all these little bits. So what I was going to say as well, I like the peripheral stuff that you can pick up from your video. So I was watching your Lionel Johnson, the black armor, and so I use a Redgrass Games palette. I've got the smaller one, and just the way you laid out the palette to work for you, I was just like fast. I was like, oh yeah, mine just is. It's just a bloody mess. I've just got stuff everywhere on it, and I'd not really considered like structuring it in that way. Even simple things, and this I just feel like an idiot now. But even simple things like having the colors you're using as like a point to go to get more of that color, rather than having to wash out your brush, get a bit more out of the pot, put that down, wash out your brush again, and go back. That I was just like, oh my goodness, that's a great idea. And actually it's funny because I think you're using the big one, aren't you? The big red grass.
The artist one.
I remember seeing that thinking, why would anybody need that? That's madness. And now I'm like, oh yeah. I think that's cool. Henry laughed at me because the thing I took away from his video was these little silver pots, these little silver dishes that he uses, and they're just amazing. And I just go banging on about them because that was the first time I'd seen them, and I just went and ordered loads of them. So
little tips like that may not even be like conscious in the video, but yeah, like you say, the way you structure the palette around, and then you do all the mixing in the middle. Tiny little tidbits like that. And one of the great things about the Patreons, the feedback loop it creates, how I'm able to take questions and then turn those things I'd never consider and turning those into videos in and of themselves. Because I know painting, it can be quite like a self-absorbing a hobby, pastime, profession. So I feel like a lot of the things I run along with my own train of thoughts, and it may not be directly applicable to like a wider audience. So having people ask me why I do these things, it allows me to analyze why I do them in the first place, and then build further videos on the top of that. So it's been a great experience for me as well as I hope the patrons who are on there. So that is the setup for this advent calendar. Every single day you'll get a treat, whether it be a giveaway, a tutorial, or a PDF guide on how to do something. So there are much larger releases. So for example, the Dreadnought I've been recently working on, the Sons of Horus, that's in there. That comes quite early on in the cycle. And then there's smaller, more useful videos like how to paint red leather. That's only about 6 minutes long, but it's nice to bookmark. So the next time you're painting red leather, you don't have to wade through like a 3-hour video. It's right there, ready and raring to go. It's clipped. It's to the point. It's directed towards you.
I love those. I love those. Those are my favorite. Not particularly necessarily red leather. I don't have a mad red leather thing going on, but the idea of the small videos with a technique.
I'll convert you after this video. You're going to be painting red leather on everything.
Well, it's the right color. I suppose doing red leather. So
I suppose one thing to clarify, Miles, is that the advent calendar is for patrons.
Yes, it is. Yeah. There will be a couple of standalone releases for everybody, but it is primarily for patrons as a big thank you for supporting me, especially in this year, 2020, where we're seeing smaller companies really struggle. And it's no different for commission painters. It's no different for anybody on that platform. It's been a horrible year to get over. So even if you don't like the stuff that I do, but you like an artist on Patreon, I would highly suggest that you pledge for at least 1 month, because it helps out so much. It really is the difference between... So I guess this is something I read online, but it chimes that when you spend on Amazon, when you spend on a big business, it goes towards a CEO's bonus at the end of the year. If you spend local, that goes on ballet shoes for somebody, that goes on somebody's grocery bill. So buying small is such it's the lifeblood, I think, of this country, and it's the lifeblood of smaller artists who work in this medium. So if you do, if you love somebody's work, please consider subscribing to their Patreon or buying a piece of artwork from them. Even if you're not in the position to do so, like retweeting something they post on social media or reblogging or promoting them in some way helps out no end. It helps out no end, and that's a completely zero impact. You don't have to spend a penny on it to help them in this situation.
And also, if you buy something off a smaller place, they're more likely to send it by Royal Mail than deliver it themselves, like Amazon, and that will help me because I work for Royal Mail. So there we go. As if amazing painting videos weren't enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And to top it all off, on the 25th, I'll send out an exclusive video directly to your inbox. That's yours to keep. One thing I should mention as well, if you sign up...
Hang on, now you can't move forward without telling us what the video is.
I'm...
Because if it's a Slaanesh striptease, I mean...
That's good. So I can tell you what I've done previous years. So the first year we launched it, it was a Delvaris video. So Delvaris is one of the, I guess, fan favorites of the Horus Heresy books. He is a boarding specialist on the Conqueror. So this is the guy who holds the ship whenever the Conqueror, the flagship of the World Eaters, is boarded. And he's an excellent, a superlative hand-to-hand combat man. So I show you how to convert him, how to paint him. Last year, it was a custom conversion by the Fenripian Forge for Remus Ventanus. So there's a PDF to go alongside that, talking about the construction from the artist who constructed him, as well as a full painting guide to go alongside him. This year, you're going to get something equally as special.
Awesome.
But not only do you get that, because of the way Patreon's structured, you don't only get the releases this month, you get all previous releases as well. You get the Lion tutorials, all of them, from non-metallic, true metallic hybrid, how to paint black. You get the Sanguinius tutorial series, you get the Painting the Legion series, you get word bearers, you get tanks, you get dreadnoughts. Hell, I'll even throw a teddy bear in there after this conversation. Like 4 years worth of content just at your beck and call, with full project explanations and PDF support for them. So it's a bit of a deal for $15 or 13-ish quid.
Mm.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's not a bad one. It's not a bad one to sign up for. Or indeed any artist you wish to support this year.
Well, I really appreciate that, Miles, actually, because given us just what you said about supporting businesses, we've tried our best this year to sort of get that message out. If the local companies, your local gaming place, the people who provide for your hobby, supporting them is awesome. And you going into it with that ethos just is such a superb way of doing things, because we all have different styles and we all like different styles.
Yes.
I have to say 100%, I've had a look at both of the videos that you sent me across. They are brilliant.
Thank you.
And they tick, and this is not meant to be demeaning in any way at all, but they tick the basic boxes.
Yeah.
You can see the model in focus, which is really good, and you can see what you're doing, and you can see your brushstrokes, and you can see all of the things that you're talking about. So it's more than just, this is a rough guide of how to do my technique. You're picking up on what is a term we use in medicine. You're learning by osmosis. Mm-hmm. So there's even things that you're not necessarily being taught, that you are being taught just by being able to see it in that clarity of detail. So whatever kit you picked up, it was worth it, because they're great videos.
Oh, I'm so happy you say that, because when you see the finished product, I do this with other artists, you see the finished product and you think, how on earth did they achieve that? The Patreon, the ethos from the very beginning is that I try and break down what seem like not mesmerizing, that's the wrong word, but inaccessible techniques. And I try and break them down into their simplest forms. I don't want to bamboozle you. I want to make this as clear a process as possible. So each stage is understood as simply as possible. And it's weird you say teaching by osmosis. Something I learned in university that's kind of like stayed with me in the background of I guess, like this background fuzz that goes into your day-to-day thoughts. There was a teacher of languages, and he believed you don't take any notes, you don't write anything down, but rather you force your brain to engage with the language and construct sentences. So he sits two people down in the room and he tells them some simple phrases, and then he starts speaking to them. It was French in this case. And the first half an hour is really torrid. But after that, your mind starts to get a handle of it. And I guess it's the same background fuzz thinking behind these videos that I'm trying to get you alongside me to do these techniques, to show you that, well, there's not much mystery behind them. They're simple techniques built one on top of another to produce the results. Yeah,
it really comes across in the videos, really does.
And I think it's worth saying as well, for anyone that is listening that's considered it but maybe hasn't signed up to anything on Patreon or isn't, if not overly familiar, but is a bit wary, you know, Ben and I have joined a number of Patreons across the year, and it is such a user-friendly platform. And actually, there is something really nice about knowing that you're directly contributing to a person. In like you were saying then, Mars, you know, it's not just going into some big coffer somewhere.
No,
you're really getting something, and you get access. Like, you know, you can then ask people. You can ask like questions and comments, and it's really good. So definitely, we'd encourage people to do it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would encourage people, if you are new to Patreon, to use the web version of it. The app, not so great. It doesn't have a search function, which is still so frustrating even today. There is a website, lillegendstudio.com. I post all links to Patreon tutorial. So if you prefer to find the tutorials through that, that's a way of doing it. But there is a search function when you look at it through the web browser. So that's how I recommend you navigate Patreon.
Whenever I log into Patreon on my phone app, it informs me that it's a new access. I could have logged in 1,000 times that year, and it would send me an email saying
it's clunky. Yeah,
your Patreon has been accessed by a new device.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't.
So something that I was mulling over sort of questions. So when we had Henry on from Cottle Paint, and he was talking about their Patreon, their 54mm miniatures, and the really obvious thing for me there was, well, I haven't really painted much in 54mm. So what would you say to me, you know, if I was wary because of that? And I think for you, the thing that I wanted to ask was, like, one thing that puts me off a little bit from pushing my painting, I suppose, or learning it or trying out techniques on videos, is I don't get a lot of time, and I feel like I'm always working towards an army project, and it's almost like don't feel like I've got time to then go and learn techniques. So I'd just be interested to know what your thoughts, you know, if anyone's thinking that way.
No. It's an incredibly common thread that runs throughout my students primarily. So I do online teaching as well. But initially when we start, I would highly suggest at the start of a project, writing down your aims for that project. So I have sticky notes everywhere. It's like my thing. I love making lists. So with this Krieg army coming up, I know that I won't have much time to paint them up to the standards as, say, the Sons of Horus army I've just done, because there's simply too many of them to do it. So I need to employ techniques that'll give me the biggest bang for my buck. I need to employ things like an overbrush with a dry brush. I need to use an airbrush to put down lots of like generalized tones. And I need to use oils. And oils, they're one of your biggest friends in this hobby. The use of oils will transform the way that you paint miniatures, because you don't necessarily need to employ a gloss varnish first. It's one of these it's one of these myths out in the community that you need to put oils, a gloss varnish down first before using oils, otherwise it'll strip the miniature. It won't. Use Sansador thinner that you can find from any good reputable art store. Mix the oils with that, and away you go. You are good. But make a list at the start of a project. I can see it up here. Sansador thinner, that is the stuff. Make a list of your project aims, because how often have you started a project with the intention of, okay, this is just going to be a quick army. I want to smash out in a couple of months. I can get playing with it. But the more miniatures you paint, the longer it gets, because the more techniques you want to employ, you want to do different things. Because you're a different person at the start of the project than where you are painting 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the line. You've grown, you've learned different things. You want to try different things. So having that structured list at the very outset of the project that just reminds you of the aims you're trying to head towards will clarify your thinking moving forward. So having that little sticky note up above you, just reminding you, your past self, shouting at future self, stay on target. You don't need to try loaded brush here. You don't need to do those guardsmen in non-metallic metal. You don't need to put tufts on everything. Stay on point.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, so that would be my biggest tip, clarifying your aims at the start of a project.
Cool.
I think Dan and I really struggle with that one, to be honest, because we both have very long-term projects. Dan's is Corn and mine's my Space Force, and every year that goes by, our approach to doing things changes, but we're always trying to keep them in line with all of the other previous stuff we've done. And we actually spoke with Henry last episode, where drawing a line under each army and going, that space will fire me 2020, that space will fire me 2025, or whatever. And they don't all have to be together. Is maybe a fresher way of doing it. But I have this awful habit. Now I've chosen how to paint my Stormcast, for example. They will never change, because I expect my Stormcast army will grow into this massive thing over the years. And
they'll just consume you. Yep.
But like, I had this exact same thing, and it's your fault, I'm going to say, this morning. when I saw the Space Wolves that you painted, I was like, God damn it. Yeah. Because I need to put green in them now, and I haven't put green in them.
Yeah.
Oh, Miles, why did you do that to me?
Yeah, okay. That's so students, again, because they progress so quickly, where they start from at a project isn't necessarily where they end up after like 2 or 3 months, because you're just learning all the time. You want to try new things. So I think what Henry suggests is a really nice way to kind of like underline projects. This is 2000. So I've learned, or I try and reinforce this: never go back and strip a miniature. Never change a miniature you've previously done, because that's such a time sink. Not only are you changing the past like a lodestone in your development, but you're also taking away from a future project where you can be developing. Now, I'm not such a big believer in, okay, once you get a recipe down, every single miniature from now until the end of time needs to be painted like that. I don't mind changing miniatures, even in the same army, having slight differences of tone. So with my Sons of Horus, for example, the infantry has been painted slightly differently from the Dreadnought.
Yeah.
The base of the Dreadnought's been slightly painted differently from the base. Every single one of those miniatures will go through a different experience on the battlefield in their life, and they'll wear the sins of that they commit on themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not such a big believer in having each miniature monotonously painted exactly the same as the last. However, I do understand that army painting, it's a lore unto itself, right? That consistency is the watchword. That you need to, but I find with coherent basing, with coherent weathering, no matter what level of it you introduce, the odd chip here and there is weathering. You don't need to plaster everything with weathering powder. The tufts that you use, the banners, the secondary colors like the metallics that you use, those things will tie a collection together, even if you use slightly different color schemes on the main portion of the army.
Yeah.
It's
so you're saying I should go for some green in my next round of Space Force?
Absolutely, you should. Yeah, you'll grow, you'll learn, you'll try something new. You'll develop as an artist and as a person.
What kind would you recommend? Because what I'm thinking was, looking at it, if I kept my primary color progression the same, which is the Fang, Russ, Fenrisian, Blue Horror-ish, but introduced a little bit of green into the shading.
So fans of mine, I get teased about this all the time. I rely on a certain set of colors, and Incubi Darkness is one of those colors. I'll use that in everything, from skin tones to leather, black armor especially, but Space Wolves. So that's what give it that kind of like greenish underglow.
Yeah.
You take Incubi Darkness and you add something like 5 to 6 to 7 parts thinner until it practically resembles dirty water.
Yeah.
Then you need to spray that. So you can complete the miniature and then you can spray that kind of like as an ambient undertone to it. So the legs, the armor, bits and pieces of the miniature, it's almost as if there's like this otherworldly fog existing around the miniatures, and you build up several successive layers of the Incubi Darkness to capture that underlight, that creepy mist.
So basically, sort of inverse Zenith.
Yeah. Or I'm trying to coin this phrase. I'm desperately trying to coin this phrase, but it's not taken off at all. But Nadia shading.
Okay, yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's never going to take off. I'm not going to a cent from it. But if it comes into common usage, I feel like I've done something good for the community.
So it was Incubi Darkness. I thought
Incubi
I
Darkness.
thought it was something like Celia Green that you'd use. Oh no, but there is a green in Incubi Darkness, isn't there? Look at that.
I'll double check the recipe, but yeah, Quelia Green Shade can certainly be used in there. I use Quelia Green Shade to tie together my Sons of Horus.
Yeah.
So the recipes between the Dreadnought and the infantry, for example, are slightly different, but Quelia Green Shade binds them together. Yeah, I'll double check the recipe, but either Incubi Darkness, I know for certain, it was either used in the creation of the grey, because I love pigmented, I like spiking color, like especially neutral colors like grey with other color influences, like Incubi Darkness. So I can't remember exactly whether I mixed in the initial base coat or whether it came on as a glaze or filter layer at the end. But I'll double check my notes.
When you do your filter layer, do you lift off the surface? We're going back to hobby desk stuff now, but do you lift off the raised areas using like airbrush thinner or something?
No, what I tend to do is tilt the miniature in such a way that I'm only airbrushing up at the shadow. Yeah. So with zenithal highlighting is from above directly, and it only picks up on those bits where sunlight will naturally hit. But with a Nadia shadow, I can invert that, so I'm only airbrushing up at the miniature.
Awesome. I'm going to be playing now.
Lots
Excellent.
Lots to explore, lots to discover.
So I think that's a wonderful roundup, Mars, about like I've learned loads just from today's chat, and I learned when we were chatting the other day, a lot of our conversation went into finishing my standard bearer. So
yes,
I think it for me it comes across what sort of teacher you are, and I think the Patreon, like I said, the videos are great, and I hope people do go and have a look, mate.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and keep me up to date as well, especially with the color choices you make of that guy. If you want to run anything past me, please let me know.
Oh, you don't want to say that?
I've loved having you. I've loved having you on, Mars. It's great to like. So I've seen your painting, ever since I really started doing bits of heresy and stuff, and loved it and thought, oh, that's cool. And it's just so nice to chat to the person at the end of the brush, I suppose. It's been really, it's great. So thank you.
Mental case. Yeah. So the way I got into commission painting and Horus Heresy was actually through Angron. I was a wine merchant. I was flicking through Facebook or whatever during my lunch break, and Angron popped up. Whoa, what's this miniature? And I thought, well, I'm never going to want that miniature. I'm never going to want it for me. I'm never going to own a World Eaters army. No interest. But I really want to paint it.
Good man.
I wonder if somebody will pay me to paint it. And that decision has led me here, talking to you fine gents.
Do you know what I found really interesting as well, actually? Is I've done it again, right at the end. I've come in with something. But
if this has got anything to do with 3D printing, Dan, you've had
No, not at all. What's been fascinating talking to you is like the extra stuff behind commissioning something for painting. So it's not just a case of I'd like this squad of Space Marines, and that's you're buying so much more, like the knowledge and the what you were talking about talking to people about concept around the Space Wolves and stuff like that, and the knowledge. I just think it's really interesting, and actually it shines a light on commission painting that maybe people don't see.
Yeah, it's always been the intention behind Lil Legend Studio to have a more bespoke service. So it's not a case of, could you paint my 20 goblins? We don't tend to do that sort of work. It tends to be people who want to develop a theme. I mean, everything you talk about in your show, theme, concept, color palette, what do you want to say? What do you want to represent with this army? I think it comes across in the work as well. It's not just like cut and paste recipes. It's individualized to you. It's an expression of your own tastes, but we get the pleasure of doing it.
That's ace.
Brilliant. Awesome. So We've got one last little chat to have about any random stuff that we can think of, which I'm sure we'll fill up with something in the wild section. But thank you very much for that, Mars. Awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Hi guys, we've just been having a natter off in between because it's what you do, and I actually realised that we probably should have been recording it. So we're in the wild section and we get to talk about just about whatever. And I suppose it has come across to me that we've never really talked about commission painting. And I was just saying to Miles that one of the things that I think comes across from Lil Legend Studios is that I feel like if I was to get Miles to paint my army, there would be a collaboration there, and it would still feel like my army. And I would also feel that there's enough of a collaboration there that I would learn enough to be able to put up a decent representation of a unit to go into that same army and not look out of place. And then you just drop this bombshell that you record everything that you paint. So, and that you give to the client so that they can watch how you did it and try and replicate it.
Yep.
I don't know if other people do that, but I think that is just absolutely golden.
Yeah, it's not a service I really advertise. Well, not yet, anyway.
I've just gone and splashed it out.
Yeah, just gone. Yeah, this is a new service we offer. Yeah, it has some. It's something we've been, because I work with a couple of other artists, local artists in the area, to help lighten the load, and it's something we've been talking about. So if you wanted to have like a paint scheme developed for your army, you just need to send one miniature. Tell us the brief, what you want to achieve with it, and we'll produce a full 4K video tutorial based in the style of the Patreon. So step by step,
step by step
color recipes. And the great thing is, if you tell us you only have Games Workshop paints, well, we'll only use Games Workshop paints to replicate it. If you don't have an airbrush, we won't use an airbrush. We'll work to the specifications because not everybody has the same setup we do. We realize that not everybody wants a goddamn airbrush. It's messy.
They can be a right pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass. It is. Yeah. What's wrong with just taking paint and putting on a palette and then splashing on the miniature? Nothing. And we'll develop a video around your specifications. And you just mentioned it feels more like a collaboration. Now, I really don't mind admitting this in public. I've said this many a time. I found out very early on, I'm very bad at being a businessman. And I if a miniature needed an extra layer of paint, I wouldn't mind adding it, even if it cut into my, what's the phrase?
Bottom line.
Into the bottom line, exactly. Even if it cut into that, I wouldn't mind putting an extra lick of paint to make a project really shine. Because I want, like you said, I want it to feel like it's your army. It just so happened that I painted it. So that's the ethos behind it. That's why I try and impart to my artists. That's why I try and impart to anybody on the Patreon. And great that if I get to paint something for a client, I film it, I can develop a video off that. Not only can I share it with you, I can share it with a community of people who want to do that same thing as well. So that's why, and it makes great content for the end of the year when I need to do 25 goddamn individual tutorials for the Advent calendar.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
No, so that's great.
So what else? Do you have anything that particularly you wanted to talk about on separate topics, Miles, while we fill the wild section up? Otherwise, I have a few things.
There's nothing that immediately springs to mind. No, hit me. What have you got?
Well, I thought it would be quite cool to add on here. We probably should have talked about it in 40K, but the new Necromunda Van Saar gangers.
Oh yeah, the guys on the hoverboards.
What do you think of those?
I'm going to play devil's advocate. Now, I love them. I think they're very like synthwave, but I have heard from players in my gaming group that it doesn't quite fit the aesthetic of Necromunda. which I guess is kind of like cyberpunk Dickensian.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those, like the Repulsor, like the Primaris engines, right? It's so new, we haven't seen it before. It's been in the art. It's certainly been in the art before, where you've had like cargo loaders in the background. We've seen it in John Blanche art, but it's just so new. It'll take a little while to get used to. It'll get a little while to wrap our heads around. And I think they'll be a lot more accepted when you see kind of like that grim, dark, esque paint job applied to them, where you can just slap enamels on them and chip them up with a sponge.
I think I saw them when I was very excited because I think that Necromunda for me is a lot about that kind of. Have you seen The Warriors, the film?
Oh God, yeah. Oh,
yeah, great film. In fact, I nearly painted one of my gangs to look like the baseball gang.
Yeah, we were like the white and black makeup. Yeah,
and I ended up going for the Joker face paint, but that's another thing. But what I think is about them is that I think there is Necromunda for me is very much about the punk. And by the punk, I mean, you could insert whatever punk you want to put in that. It's steampunk, nuclear punk, whatever punk it is. And I think that gangs of kids whooping around on some form of bike, whether it hovers or rides on the floor, is exactly the sort of thing that I would expect to see in Necromunda. And the Vansars are arrogant, and they've got their hands on technology that, quite frankly, I think the Mechanicum would have their guts for garters if they really.
Yeah. They mentioned that in the show, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I think the hoverboard is one of those things that, but I don't expect it works as well as like the Helion ones or Helios ones that the Dark Elder have. I think they probably smash them. I mean, they're a lot bigger for a start. I think they're probably smashing them into buildings and just being all sorts of trouble. But I just can imagine being on the street in a Necromunda settlement, eating my rat burger, with the with the vendors around and these guys hollering overhead. It fit for me. Straight away it fit for me, and I was a bit surprised when I saw so much.
Do you know what I think it is? Necromunda. It's such a new game, and I know it has a past history, span over 30 years into confrontation in White Dwarfs.
Yeah,
but we've never had this much information about the individual gangs up until this point. There've been blurbs, snippets, certainly, but having these like full plush. I mean, I play Goliath in Necromunda. That book is freaking amazing. The Book of Chains. It gives you so much detail over the creation of the gang, how they just interact with each other and other gangs in society. It's a new, changing, evolving game, and I think these new things. You might have a bit of like a quizzical look. I'm not sure about that. I'm sure, like when you put it like that, these young guys just hollering and whooping and zipping around the house. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I think you've just completely stolen my thunder, because that's exactly what I was going to say.
What you could do, say it again and just edit me out.
Yeah. No, I do think it's you do see it a lot now. Because I think we even mentioned it last time we recorded. If you compare how much is available now for Necromunda to what was available the first official Necromunda time round, the box that Ben's got behind him there, so much more has been done. Much more has been done now that the aesthetic or what have you is being developed far beyond what it was when that game went off sale. Chris, a friend of mine, Chris, is just mad about Necromunda, and he's just constantly gibbering in excitement.
If you're looking to develop yourself as a painter, get a Necromunda gang, because they have armor, they have skin, some of them have fur. So, there's just a multiplicity of different textures that you could develop, and you could even do like a concept thing with maybe like 2 light sources. You could do a really, really cyberpunk synthwave concept. Yeah, so magenta from one side, turquoise from another.
No. My mind has just exploded on itself.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Last month's White Dwarf, one of the Games Workshop artists, he did a brilliant thing. Okay, he had limited time. I loved reading this because this is exactly what I do. He had such a limited time to produce his gang. He needed to do a color scheme to fit in with his time frame. So all he did with the Delac is just do an under lighting to the face. With the black, and that's all he needed to do, and they looked amazing. Yeah, there's so much to do with Necromunda.
I've just got this image of a gang of warlocks standing outside the front of a bar, like with the neon lights on the different sides of them. That would look so good.
It's really easy to do with an airbrush as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that Maxime
Corbiel?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Phenomenally talented artist.
He is. He's a great army painter.
Oof, yeah.
So how about we go for top 5 painting tips, each one within a sentence?
Ooh, okay. Let's see whether I can do this. Stop licking your brushes.
No.
Yep. Okay. Let me. Okay. Stop licking your brushes. They're no good for you. Learn to dilute paint while... Oh, that's a terrible sentence. Hold on. That's a terrible... Okay. Learn the difference between dilution of paint and moistness on brush.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at. Need to do better.
Incorporate the primary colors into your palette.
Yeah.
Don't focus so much on brush size, concentrate instead, or semicolon, whatever to do to attach the sentence. Concentrate instead on the tip of the brush. That's where the magic happens. That's 4.
That's an Archer's quote, isn't it? Just the tip.
Just the that's a lot more concise. Yeah. Concentrate on the tip. Fifth one. Concentrate on becoming the painter you want to be rather than the painters you see on social media.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So many students, and it's very easy to fall into this trap. I do it myself. Because so many people are producing so much stuff online, it almost feels like you're falling behind. Like all these great artists doing different things, experimenting, doing this, doing that, doing the other, when really it's a bit of a false economy. Because I paint full time. So of course there'll be like lots of varied content on my social media because I'm doing this all day, every day for at least 8 hours. Don't try and compare yourself to other people. Instead, learn to appreciate what they do and steal what they do. Incorporate their style, the things you enjoy about their work, into your own work and become the painter you are rather than trying to imitate somebody else.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Stop licking your goddamn brushes as well. That's a terrible habit to get into, especially when you start doing oil paints.
Oh, yeah. Well, my personal favourite is when you lick the brush when you're doing microset and microsol by accident and it feels like the back of your head's just blown.
Yeah.
So how would you, because I lick my brush, that is a habit. It's definitely a habit, but I do it to bring my brush to a point.
So what you could do is do you have a brush nearby?
I have far too many brushes.
Grab a brush. Okay, let's try this.
I'm going to lick it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm full on break. I'm having like PTSD flashbacks to Nam now. So to bring it to a point, instead of licking it, try and hold the bristles in the crook of your little finger and drag the paintbrush up.
Not sure I understand that.
So hold on. This would be so much easier if I could get my camera to work. So hold the brush as you normally would during a painting session. Yep. Right now. So on the same hand.
This is great radio.
Yeah, that you hold the brush.
Yeah.
Point the brush down past your little finger. That's it. Now drag it up, dragging it through the crook of your little finger. That's it.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if I could. So how about on a tissue, something like that?
Yeah, tissue will do as well. Tissue will very much do.
I know Tommy Saul does it on his trousers. Gets this point. He's a big anti-brush licker as well.
Yes, yeah. I actually got it from him, and it just as soon as he started talking about it, made so much sense. But then again, you have some of the best painters in the world who lick their brushes, like Ben Comets, and. But I am definitely on the side of anti-brush licking.
Well, there we go. I'm gonna have to now focus on not licking my brush.
Yes, and every time you do, try and reinforce good habits. So when you don't lick your brush, I know, like pop a mint in your mouth.
I'm trying to lose weight, man. If I did that, I'd end up like as it was.
Yeah,
you could give yourself a token. And then when you've got a lot of tokens, you get a marble, because that's what we're doing with Joshua. And, he's very excited. Yeah, when he's good, he gets a token, which is actually this sounds awful now. It's actually the top of a milk bottle, the plastic top, and we give him that as a token. And then he's got a jar, and he saves them up. And when he gets to the top of all these little things he's done, he gets a marble. And he gets like something little, and then once the marble jar is full, he can like pick like a big Lego kit or something.
I have a 2-year-old. That's goddamn gold for me. Thank you so. I'm gonna tell my wife that as soon as that. Thank you. Thank you so
I can't
much.
take the credit. That's my wife. She's amazing, and she spends lots of time and thought into how to help both, because we've got Joshua who's 4 and Hannah who's 1. And they are full of beans, and trying to control the madness is her full-time job, literally, and because it's mental. Okay, and you control them through
marbles,
through the top of a milk bottle.
Yeah, and marbles. Okay, yeah. I'm implementing that tomorrow.
We have this is actually quite a good end to the episode, because our next episode is going to be about dad hammering, so as in war hammering and being a dad, and that's quite.
I'm glad you clarified. Nice, it's not a case of running around and hitting dads with hammers.
But that's not like a kinky thing.
My my little boy is big into Pokemon, so at the moment we bought a big set of Pokemon cards and I split them down into little packs, and he has to do 35 little chores, and he gets himself a little pack of Pokemon cards, and I thought this was an absolute dead cert. And for 1 week now, he hasn't done a single chore. So I mean, not even Pokemon cards will convince this little.
Yeah, monster. But they're crazy, man. They are like the Borg. We've said this before. They adapt. They are so adaptive. Yeah. You come up with what you think is the perfect way to get them to go to sleep. And it works. And it works just long enough that you think, yes, I've got them. And then they flip and adapt, and you've got to choose again. And it's like, oh my God.
Just go increase the amount of brandy they drink before going to bed.
Yes, that's right.
It's his birthday tomorrow, and he's telling everyone in the universe. And to the point where I'm currently building my hobby shed out in the back garden, which is breaking me a little bit. And because it's been a lot of heavy work over the lockdowns, because we haven't been able to get builders and tradesmen in, so I've had to learn how to do a lot of things. And we laid the power cable today, so I had to have an electrician come to cap it off at both ends, so put the unit in the shed and put it into the fuse box in the house. And I kid you not, it took 5 seconds to tell this complete stranger it was his birthday tomorrow. Literally 5 seconds. So, Tristan, this is, I won't say his name. This is the dude's come to do our house. And goes, oh, hi, it's my birthday tomorrow.
It's like anybody who's been to Oxford or Cambridge University, 5 seconds in the conversation, they mention it. Yeah. Brilliant.
So this sign off, we've got a bit more to cover. So if you want to find Miles, Lil Legend Studio instantly brings up his accounts on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And in Google, it's the top of the list. So dead easy to find. Lil Legend spelled Lil, and then Legend. So missing out the tool in the middle of it.
Yes.
Little Legends. And Dan and I, if you're feeling adventurous, can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the 2P's podcast. And we do have a website, although it's not been particularly well maintained. Time constraints and all that. At the 2p'sandapod.com. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Miles.
Oh, it's been so fun. So thank you so much for having me on. And at that tip with the marbles, my God, I feel like my world has been. I feel like I'm seeing color for the first time.
And if it's okay with you, we'll invite you on again in the future.
Oh, hell yeah, absolutely, anytime you want, guys. Listener questions, your questions, whatever. Yeah, please do. Yeah, absolutely love this.
Brilliant. Well, it's been episode 59. Episode 60 will be out hopefully in 2 weeks. Where, like we said last time, we'll be doing a little bit on parenting and hobbying. So if anyone has any tips or ideas or questions, please send them our way, and we'll try our best to find someone who knows what they're talking about and ask them.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.